Hi everyone, I wanted to show you what you can do to get an excellent ham radio station without having to spend any more than is really necessary. And if your success is anything like mine, you should be able to reach all around the world. I'm talking about not just all over the United States, if that's where you live, but also all around to every major inhabited continent. So I'm not joking, and I'm talking about actually doing this in not just any location, but in a restricted space location, such as where maybe you live in an HOA, or you have a relatively small backyard, or for whatever reason you have just a limited space, or maybe it's more about the budget. Maybe you can't spend money on a tower or a Yagi antenna or multiple antennas, even if they're just, average antennas, but nothing super high gain. Well, this video is for you if you're just looking for a quick idea. Now, this is my best suggestion. A lot of it is from experience, from a lot of research, especially during the past few years, but I have been gathering research the whole time I have been a licensed ham radio operator for over 20 years now, and I hope that this is helpful to at least somebody out there. So what I would like to do is start by recommending that when you are getting a transceiver, that you focus on getting one with an excellent receiver. If you have an excellent receiver, then if it is any kind of a modern transceiver, you should be doing okay, if at least your receiver is excellent. So with that, there is something called the Sherwood list by Sherwood Engineering Incorporated. And with this list, it has 12 sections. And if you can get something in the first one or two sections, or potentially even the third section out of the 12, you should be doing pretty well. Now, I'll include links in the description so that you can dive in more deeply and find out more information depending on how deep you want to go here. And hopefully it will help you to make your own decision so you're not just taking my word for it. But if I were to give just a quick shout out to some relatively value-packed, relatively low-cost transceivers, I would like to recommend the Yaesu FP-1030. Right in here, it is the third one down in this test data. And that was a fairly recent result from October of 22. And then if you go down to the second section, the most recent test for the Icom IC-7300, that one was from 2018, and that one also has very favorable results. Both of these transceivers are a similar cost. I happen to have the Icom IC-7300, and I am familiar with that. I'm also familiar with Yaesu products, but from my experience, the Icom IC-7300 is going to be very user-friendly, and it's going to be a rather full-featured transceiver for this price level. Okay, with that, let's take a look at the actual transceivers. Now, I happen to be using Ham Radio Outlet, HRO, which is the hamradio.com website. Again, I will include links in the description of this video. But let's take a look at what we have here. So after rebate, and incidentally, when I purchased mine a few years ago, the rebate process was fairly straightforward. I just had to pay close attention to what the exact instructions were, and it turned out just fine. So make sure you keep the packaging and your receipt and all of that so that you can make sure to cash in on this rebate. In this case, it's a $100 ICOM rebate. Now, After rebate, you're paying $999.95, and you're getting a very full-featured transceiver. Feel free to dive more deeply into this at your own leisure. Now, one that I am not as experienced with is this top performer here from the Sherwood Engineering receiver test data. And that one is actually only $954.95. Now, Yaesu is not known for having the most user-friendly interfaces, but I have heard that their interfaces are much better now with some of their more modern full-featured radios than what they used to be. So I would highly recommend this Yaesu, even though I do not have any experience with it myself. But from what my research and those test results are showing, I would say it's a very solid offering, and you can actually end up saving money. All right, with that, you need to be able to power these items somehow. Now, of course, you can power them through battery power, emergency backup, and so forth. Just make sure it is clean power. So I recommend going with a linear power supply if you are not able to go just straight with a battery without any kind of electronics in the way that might interfere. For example, an inverter or anything like that. Don't mess with any of those things if you don't have to. They're nice for when you need them, but if you need to just plug something into the wall outlet and get some good clean power, from my research, I would recommend the Astron RS-35A. That way it can handle 25 amps continuous and 35 amps for those peak situations. And I like the Astron brand because they specialize in power supplies. So that helps them to focus all of their efforts and energy, research and development into getting the best possible power supplies. And they're not divided too thinly between a humongous product line. However, I have never owned an Astron product, so be sure to do your own research. There are lots of reviews out there on the web, I'm sure. Now, for a brand I am more familiar with, we have the Yaesu FP-1030A. Incidentally, the Yaesu is about $230. The Astron is about $260, so similar price ranges. In this case, though, it will do 30 amps for the Yaesu and about 24 or 25, I believe I've seen somewhere else. Yeah, 25 amps for this Yaesu. So for the continuous, so that's again in comparison to the 25 amps for the Astron. So not too bad there. Just be aware the peak is 30. So the peak is not quite as high as the 35 you get with the Astron. However, I like the design with the meters here. You have to pay extra for the Astron to get a model with those. I also like the simple, basic, non-proprietary connectors that come with this. And there's even a second, like cigarette lighter style accessory plug, like for an automotive accessory plug, if you have an extra accessory that you need to power that way. So I really do like this style. However, I feel like from different reviews I have read that it may not be quite the quality of the Astron, but you would have to do more research. I have not owned either of these. I personally own one by MFJ. I plan to do a separate video about my own equipment, but the MFJ supply has served me well, at least for the most part, but I would recommend going with one of these if I were to start fresh. All right, now of course the antenna, one of the most important pieces of your station. If you can invest more in a better antenna, a longer antenna, do so. But as a good, excellent long antenna that's lightweight, easy to use, high quality, I have to recommend the Chameleon antenna CH-AH730. Now this is a product that I do own. I use my Icom IC-7300 and high quality coax. That's another important thing. Make sure you are investing in very high quality coax. No need to waste money if it's more than what you need, but get high quality if you can. And this is about $100. And it's excellent. 25 feet. And then if you're just running a vertical antenna like this, you can also get radials. I wouldn't say it's absolutely necessary from my own experience with a shorter antenna with no radials, but I would say if you can, get some radials with it, and then you'll want to determine how you want to mount it. I mount it on a tripod. Again, I plan to cover that more in a future video, but there's almost endless mounting options with an antenna like this. Now, when you are running an antenna, when you're wanting to stick with one antenna, one nice long antenna, it's better to have it too long than not long enough. However, in order to match with the transceiver, you need an antenna tuner. Now, if you want to stick with the Icom brand, you could go with this Icom IC-AH730, and that is about $550. Notice here it says with a 7-meter or 23-foot or longer wire element, or in the case of the Chameleon antenna, a vertical antenna, all band matching is possible from the 1.8 megahertz 160 meter band to the 50 megahertz 6 meter band. It's efficient for multi-band operation. Now, of course, there's a lot more that you're going to want to research about this if you're putting in a lot of money and making a big investment here. However, this would be my quick recommendation for an automatic antenna tuner, so you don't waste time tuning. You can focus on your contacts, those good QSOs. As an alternative, you could go with LDG. Now, they specialize in tuners, so again, that's one of those companies where their main specialty is primarily one product line with various models. This one's about $270, so you'd save quite a bit respectively, and you're still getting excellent tuning capability for 1.8 to 54 megahertz. So all in, if you were to go the low-cost route out of these choices, it would be approximately $1,600 for all of the items, including allowing yourself a little bit of money for some coax. But if you were to go with more of the higher cost items that I shared here, and maybe a more expensive mounting system and so forth, then you could be looking at closer to $2,000 or so. So you have to determine what your budget is and what's best for you. But I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to sharing more content in upcoming videos. For now, this is AC7WH saying 73.